All right, ladies and gentlemen, before we kick off or before we begin, we thank God for everything, right? For preserving our lives to be able to be here this morning. Because without Him, there is nothing we can achieve. And in the first case, He's the one that gives wisdom, right? So we dedicate this lecture to Him and we pray that He may give us the wisdom to be able to understand what we are going to learn today. Right. Guys, we are going to learn what we call performance management. I think I started with this yesterday. Remember, I said, as a project manager, you should be able to recognize good work. Remember what I said yesterday, all right? Recognition of good work. When your team members or any of your team members have done something good, you need to acknowledge it, recognize it, recognizing an achievement. Right. I said, most probably what is happening these days, we've got a kind of a system in place that are being used to recognize achievement. Right. Then I talked about performance management system, whereby a mechanism is instituted within the project environment that stipulates the core competencies that are required from the team members. We got what we call target indicators, whereby the performance of the team members are being measured, right, against the core competencies. That is what is required of the team members. And wherever you see that the team member excel, then they deserve to be rewarded, right? Such good works needs to be acknowledged, needs to be recognized. Do you understand? Like I was saying yesterday, for example, you put yourself in that position that you've been hardworking, right? You've been putting all your best, going extra miles, and nobody cares about what you're doing. Obviously, you're going to get demoralized. Do you understand what I mean? Right. So, to avoid that, in a project environment, there should be a mechanism in place to monitor, look at, to evaluate, in short, or to appraise. That is the language we are using. We call it appraiser. To appraise your performance, or want to be able to establish, you know, your good performance, acknowledge, we can help to recognize your achievement or your good work, which in most cases can even lead to a kind of recognition. Right? There are different ways that a project manager can recognize the achievement. We are going to talk about that. Most importantly, here, there are certain concepts that I want to introduce to you, new concepts, for you to be able to understand what we are doing here. And what I'm going to teach you here is not only applicable within the project environment. Tomorrow, when you get your certificate, you get a job, where you are working, all these things are going to be, you are going, obviously, you're going to see all these things I'm teaching you. Performance appraiser. Like I told you here, we got what we call IQMS, right? That we are using, the Department of Higher Education is using to appraise our performance quarterly, 4 times in a year. Then at the end of the year, if you perform, if you got a good score, because there's a rating, right? For example, they can say the methods of the use of technology in the class, in enhancing teaching and learning in the class, right? For example, me, I can aspire to get 4/4. The highest mark is 4 because I'm making use of technology in the classroom, right? I should aspire to get 4/4. Something of this nature or something of that. They got different ratings, description of task and ratings. Is what we call. So at the end of the day, they add it up. So they got a kind of a threshold. If you are able to get to that threshold, they say, okay, you can be promoted, or they can add a little bit of a notch, to your salary, which is motivating. You understand what I mean? So that is what we are talking about. So back to what I was saying, the key concept related to team achievement and the performance management that I would like you to embrace, to know today. Right. Performance management system, they call it PMS. PMS is a buzzword everywhere, in every working place, most especially within the vicinity or within the area of a domain of human resources. They always talk about PMS, performance management system. When you start working, then you're gonna get yourself used to it. You see, we've got a nice visitor here. That is great, man. It's coming to visit us. All right. So a PMS, what does it stand for? It's a formal process used to plan, monitor, and assess and improve employee performance. Right? When you've employed someone working in a project environment, right? You can use this PMS to plan the performance in terms of setting the target, having ratings, right? On which you can use to assess the performance, right, of that employee. Remember what I said yesterday. PMS appraiser or whatever, when you are appraising the performance of a team member in a project environment, it shouldn't be punitive. You know what I mean by punitive? Somebody comes to you to see what you are doing, and at the end of the day, discover that there are certain things that you are you got a shortfall, then they will use it to fire you or to punish you. No, it shouldn't be like that. It's to improve. It's to work towards an improvement. If I've come to appraise you, I discover that you are good in certain areas, fine, you are excelling. Perhaps there are certain areas where you are not doing well. We have to look for a way on how to improve, to help you to improve on those areas. Right. So it's like what happens here. You see, sometimes we'll get senior or whosoever that is coming in to do a kind of a class visit. You must have seen it here, right? Class visit is to see how you are doing. It's part of our what they call it performance management system. Like I say, what we have here, we call it a QMS, IQMS, right? So it helps organization or in a project environment to set goals and monitor progress. It measures productivity of team members. When you do a kind of appraisal, right, by virtue of performance management, you can be able to measure the productivity, right? The productivity of a team member in terms of the inputs of that team member in doing his or her work. Then the quality and the achievement of project objectives, right? Okay. So that is what the PMS stands to achieve. Then these are the terms that I want you to embrace today. Some of the concepts that I want you to learn in the course of PMS. Right. We got appraiser period. Appraiser. Like I said, the period of assessment. Right. Like I said, we got what we call appraisal period. Come later, I'm busy now, right? So this is the specific period during which employee performance is evaluated later. Right. The period in which you need to evaluate the performance of the employee. Like I said, here is being done quarterly, right? Every three months. So our appraisal period is every three months. Do you understand what I mean? So that is what we refer to as appraisal period. And it can be monthly, like I said, quarterly, biannually, or annually, right? And it's used to measure employees' achievement over time, right? So when we say quarterly, you know what we mean by quarterly, right? Quarterly. What is quarterly? If something is being done quarterly, okay, let's start monthly. You know what is we mean by monthly, right? 12 times in a year, right? Okay. So when something is biannual, you know, but all these things, you know, right? Okay. So that is what we refer to as appraisal period. Perhaps in the exam, if you are asked to explain the concept of appraisal period, you should be able to know that is the period during which employee performance are being evaluated or being appraised or being assessed. Does it make sense to you? Right. Now, let's talk about the appraisal system. The appraisal systems, right? Methods or tools, it has to talk about when you are talking about the appraisal system, right? You need to know about the methods or tools used to evaluate employee performance. It's about two methods. The methods that needs to be utilized. How? Right? The methods. How is the appraisal going to be done? Right. Is this something that you need to make a visit to where the employee or the team member is performing his or her duty, right? By way of an observation, by way of an observation, right? For example, like the class visit is a kind of observation, right? Or you need to look at the output, right, of the employee per se, right? By reviewing documents or whatever, or by the employee completing the checklist. You know, do you understand what I mean? Or responding to questionnaires. So those things needs to be determined. The methods and tools that can be used to evaluate the performance of the employees needs to be established. Right. We say example includes self-assessment. Self-assessment, for example, questionnaires. Right. You can design a kind of a questionnaire, you know, in form of in a way that the team member can be able to utilize to access his performance. Have you seen something of such before? Yes, of course. There are things of that, right? Or peer review. What do we mean by peer review? Someone reviewing, looking into, or carrying out the appraisal of his peers. It can be done. It's a way, it's a method that one can utilize to appraise the performance of a team member. Or it could be in form of supervisor's evaluation, right? And 360 feedback. Feedback, reporting feedback every time, getting feedback in terms of everyday feedback, in terms of what the person is doing. So from here, you can be able to, these are some of the tools that you can utilize to appraise the performance of somebody. Are you understanding what I'm saying? Hello? I see you look a little bit distracted. Are you focusing on what I'm saying here? What is your name? Yeah, Gamma. Do you understand what we are doing here now? Okay. Hello, Zaher. Okay, very good. Now, so this helps organization to identify, like I said just now, remember, this thing is very important, what I'm teaching you here now. It helps you to identify the strengths and weaknesses of that particular employee per se. Like I explained to you before, it's not a punitive measure. But some people, they've got their own misconception. Let me use that way. They got their own misconception about PMS. For example, when you see someone coming into the class or a class visit, you see some of the students now they tend to make ridicule of the lecturer because they know that the lecturer will be doing something that he or she has never done before, trying to make sure that things are being done in the most best way. You see what I mean? Yeah. But it's not supposed to be like that. It's something that's supposed to be natural, and then like a natural flow, like just normal. Somebody walk into your class to observe to see what you are doing and go away, right? Because you don't need to be hiding some things in the cupboard, like somebody having skeleton in the cupboard. Can just flow. That what I always tell them. That if you want to come and observe me, don't tell me, right? Just walk in, normal, and see what I'm doing. If there are certain things I'm not doing right, you've identified certain weaknesses, then you tell me. Then I know we look for a way to improve on it. Do you understand? Where I have got strength, then we need to consolidate on those areas and move on. Because we are all here to achieve a shared goal. It's the same thing in project management. You are all there to achieve a shared goal of the objective of the project. It's a shared objective. You see what I mean? Not to punish somebody, say you are not doing what you're supposed to. No, you make correction. Doesn't make sense to you. Right. So perhaps this thing is happening where you are working. You are working most, right? Okay. Have you ever been evaluated? Have they done a performance evaluation at where you are working? Performance evaluation. They are not appraising your performance. Oh, they do. Okay. Now, the approving officer, who is the approving officer? The authorized person who review and approve a performance evaluation. This thing is very important because where if you start working and there is no performance appraisal going on there, there's a problem because you can get stuck. You get demotivated them because nobody is appraising you to recognize your performance. Right. So then the one that is authorizing, the person authorized, sorry to say, to do the review and approve performance evaluation is the approving officer. Right. For example, once it's done here, somebody needs to do the appraisal. Then it has to be sent to Department of Higher Education and Training. There we got people that are competent in reviewing it and approving it. Then at the end of the day, yeah, we get a small tip, a small, what do you call it, notch, right? They add a little bit to our notch. We call it 2%. Every year we are getting that amount, 2%, right? Okay. So that is how it goes. So it could be a supervisor, a manager. The supervisor, like the way it happens here, the supervisor will do the evaluation and they send it to the head office to do the review and approve the performance. Right. Then that is what we mean by approving officer. Supervisor could be a supervisor, manager, or project leader. So all those people are involved in doing your appraisal. So they are responsible for approving the rating. The rating, like I explained to you before, right? The ratings, there is always a rating, right? Attached to different tasks. Like the simple example I gave to you, use of technology in teaching and learning in the class could be 4, right? For example. So you need to rate the performance of the team member against that, based on that, sorry to say. right? Like the simple example I gave to you, use of technology. I'm using technology, right? You could give me, or I could claim 4/4, not even 3/4, right? So when you look at, for example, you look at the tidiness of, or let me say, record keeping and all those type of stuff. When you look at my files, my cabinet is not in good order. So you cannot, such authorizing officer will not give me 4/4 in record keeping. Perhaps 2/4. All those kind of stuff. Those are the ratings we are talking about. Right? Do you understand what I'm saying? Okay. So yeah, rating, reward, what needs to, because before you do the performance evaluate, before you do the appraisal, you must have first of all agreed on the ratings, right? What reward that needs to be given to deserving team members, and what development plan that needs to follow, right? For example, if you discover that, remember what we said, it helps organization to identify strengths and weaknesses, right, of a team member. Now, for example, when you discover that the person is, in terms of the strength, and that person is deserving to be rewarded, you reward that person. Where there are weaknesses, you don't fire that person. You look for a way to bridge the gap because there are shortfalls now. So that one will have to fall under the line of development plan. You have to institute a mechanism to bridge up the gap, to develop that person. So here, there must be a development plan to cater for that. Does it make sense to you? Right. That is why you see in most cases, people are being sent out to seminars, to workshop, to training. Then you start wondering, wasn't I sent? Do you understand what I mean? Because they've done what we call training need analysis, which could have a bearing on the performance appraisal. Because you cannot just conclude the training need analysis if you haven't done your performance appraisal. The genesis, right, of training need analysis starts from performance appraisal. Because from the performance appraisal, you see the shortcomings, the gaps that one can use training to bridge. Does it make sense to you? Right. Like here, every time they send out people for training, they don't send me. I'm not worried because what they are going to learn, they know what I'm doing. So there's no point, right? Then core competencies. You could be asking the exam to explain what we mean by core competencies. Guys, like I said, this thing I'm explaining to you, not only for classroom purpose or for you to pass the exam, it's good for you outside, most especially when you started working, right? Right. Core competency, these are the key skills, knowledge, and behavior required for effective job performance. When you see an advertisement, there are certain core competencies that will be put in the advertisement, right? Of a position. Perhaps you've applied for that position, you got a job. So those are the core competencies that are required of you. And when you are going to be appraised, they are going to look at those core competencies. The ratings are going to be based on the core competencies. So examples may include communication, right? How you communicate, leadership, teamwork, and problem solving. So these are generic, right? Then these are important for achieving the project goal successfully. Then employee performance folder. This is the folder where you put the employee performance, or the appraiser record, right? Which may include a file or record containing employee performance documents. So this may include appraiser training record, attendance, and so it helps to track employee development and performance issue. So the level of performance. This one refers to how well an employee performed assigned duties based on younger. core competencies. How well you are able to perform, right? Your assigned duties based on the core competencies. Do you understand what I mean? So performance level may include outstanding, right? These are the terms, right, that can be used to qualify your performance levels. Outstanding, satisfactory, or need improvement. So it can be used to measure achievement against the expected standard. Your achievement against expected standard. What are the expected standard? Right? Expected standard is rooted on your core competencies. Right. Then the performance award. Guys, when you've discovered that a team member has have excelled in performing his or her duties that warrant you to award, to recognize the achievement of such team members, then there should you need to put in place a performance award. This is where this concept cropped in, which is a recognition award given for excellent performance, right? So such an award could include bonuses, bonuses, right? Give bonus certificates, even a certificate, right? Then certificate of to recognize your excellent performance, promotions as the case may be, or incentives, which in its own helps to motivate employees to improve productivity and teamwork. Right. So performance improvement period, a specific period given to improve poor performance. For example, remember what we said. The PMS is for you to, it enables an organization to see the strengths and weaknesses of an employee. So wherever there are weaknesses, there should be a specific period given to improve such a poor performance. Right. And we should include support. You must support the employees, you guide the employees, and monitor the employees. As we said, it will help to improve. Improvement goals are set and review. Okay. Now, the progress review, a meeting or evaluation used to assess progress towards goals. Right. So this one needs to be done as well for you to be able to helps to track whatever progress that have been made. Then, yeah, guys, what the period is over now. Okay, what is going to happen is next time I will just reflect on it. Then I will teach you ways to show recognition of achievement, right? Whereby you have an award, right? We could involve employee of the month, best team award. You've seen all these things before. Leadership and award. Then prizes, which could include voucher, trophies, cash incentive or whatever. Then public accolade. What is public accolade? Like this, right? Okay, well done for a good job and report and all those stuff. So we're gonna go back and talk extensively to those slides so that you will be able to comprehend, understand this problem. Right. Keep your task.